bedroom door and saw the bloodied, lifeless bodies of her 6-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son stacked in the bathtub, their eyes open, covered in blood, staring ahead.
In the heart of bustling New York, inside a lavish apartment, an ordinary day turned into a nightmare no one could have predicted. A family's life, seemingly perfect from the outside, was forever changed by an act so shocking that it left the entire city in disbelief. The culprit? Someone they trusted with their most precious treasures, their children. What unfolded behind those walls revealed a betrayal so devastating it sent shockwaves far beyond their home. What could drive a trusted nanny to commit such an unthinkable act? Stay with us as we uncover the horrifying details of this case. Upper West Side, Manhattan, an area known for its elegance and family-friendly charm. On October 25, 2012, this affluent neighborhood became the backdrop for a tragedy that no one could have anticipated. Leo Krim, a devoted mother, was raising her 3 young children, Lucia, affectionately called Lulu, and her baby boy, Leo, in a home filled with love and warmth. That day seemed no different from any other. Marina left for an afternoon outing with her youngest, returning home later with joyful anticipation to reunite with her family. But as she stepped inside, the warmth she expected was replaced with an eerie silence. The home she had left bustling with life now felt disturbingly quiet. What she was about to discover would shatter her world forever. Leo Krim's days were filled with the little joys of motherhood. On October 25th, she had taken her youngest child, Nanny, to a swimming lesson, a weekly routine that added a spark of excitement to their day. Their home, nestled in Manhattan's Upper West Side, was alive with warmth and laughter. Marina's other children, 6-year-old Lucia, who was lovingly called Lulu, and 2-year-old Leo, had stayed with their nanny, 50-year-old Yoselyn Ortega. Marina had planned to meet Yoselyn later that day, but there was no sign of her. Marina grew more and more worried as time passed. Her texts went unanswered. "Where are you? Where's Lulu?" she asked, growing increasingly anxious. She decided to head home with Nanny to see if something was wrong. When they arrived at the apartment, everything seemed strange. The door opened to an eerie silence, and all the lights were off. Marina went back downstairs to ask the doorman if they had left already. He told her they hadn't. She went back upstairs and started searching the apartment. She found her daughter's bag and her son's stroller, just like they usually were. As she held her daughter's hand, she moved through the rooms. When she reached the bathroom, she saw a sliver of light under the door. Inside, she found Leo and Lucia lying in the tub. Lucia had been stabbed 30 times, and Leo 5. The tub, once a place of playful splashes and bubbles, was now filled with water-tinged red. Lucia and Leo lay lifeless inside, their small bodies eerily still. The walls bore streaks of blood, marking a horrifying struggle. And there, slumped near the sink, was Yoselyn Ortega, gripping a knife. Her attempt to harm herself had left her covered in blood, yet she was still alive. Marina's knees buckled as the realization hit her like a forceful blow. A scream erupted from deep within her, a sound so raw and heart-wrenching that it echoed beyond the apartment walls. Nanny began to cry, clutching her mother tightly as Marina's screams grew louder. Neighbors rushed to her aid, pounding on the door and eventually stepping into the nightmare themselves. Marina could do nothing but collapse, her sobs breaking the heavy silence that had once filled the room. Emergency responders arrived within moments, their footsteps hurried but hesitant as they stepped into a scene that words could hardly describe. The warmth and joy that had defined the Krim family's life had been torn apart in the most unimaginable way. That night, the Upper West Side, a place known for its security and affluence, bore witness to a tragedy that no one could have foreseen. The scene outside the apartment was chaos. Red and blue lights from emergency vehicles flashed against the walls of the building as neighbors gathered, their faces pale with shock. Police officers rushed in and out, exchanging clipped words, while paramedics prepared their equipment. The air was thick with tension, and yet amidst the noise, Marina's cries pierced through, raw and unending. In the lobby, Marina sat on the cold floor, clutching Nessie tightly to her chest. Her sobs shook her entire body, her face a portrait of devastation. Nessie, too young to understand the full weight of what had happened, clung to her mother, her own tears falling silently. Every passing minute felt like an eternity as the reality of the loss began to sink in. Meanwhile, Leo Krim, Marina's husband, was returning from a work trip. Unaware of the nightmare unfolding back home, he casually checked his voicemail during the ride. The moment he heard Marina's trembling voice, panic struck him. Her words were incoherent, but the sheer terror in her tone told him something was very wrong. Kevin arrived at the apartment building only to be met by police officers who gently stopped him at the entrance. Their words, spoken softly yet firmly, shattered his world. His legs gave way as he processed the unthinkable. His two youngest children were gone. Neighbors, many of whom had known the family and shared in their joy, were heartbroken. They were the kindest people, one recalled. You could see how much they loved their kids. Others spoke of the children's cheerful nature and the warmth they brought to the building. Officials addressed the media, their voices steady yet solemn. "This is a tragedy that shakes us all," one officer said. "The loss of such innocent lives is incomprehensible." For the Krim family, life had changed irreversibly in a matter of hours. The laughter that once filled their home was now a haunting memory, and the pain they faced was one no family should ever endure. As the investigation unfolded, the pieces of Yoselyn Ortega's life began to reveal a complicated and troubled story. Originally from the Dominican Republic, Yoselyn had moved to New York with hopes of creating a better future for herself and her family. But the city's demands were relentless. Financial struggles weighed heavily on her, with most of her earnings going toward her son's education at an expensive private school. Initially, Yoselyn had integrated seamlessly into the Krim family. Marina described her as nurturing and dependable, someone she could trust with her children. Neighbors often saw Yoselyn playing with the kids in the park or carrying groceries up to the apartment, always appearing devoted. Yet, behind closed doors, cracks had begun to form. Interviews with those who lived nearby painted a picture of a woman under immense pressure. A neighbor recalled seeing her looking increasingly stressed in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. "She seemed tired, always in a hurry," they said. Another mentioned how she had recently been short-tempered with delivery workers and even the children. The investigation uncovered several red flags that had gone unnoticed. Yoselyn's references, submitted before her employment, were found to be falsified. The agencies she claimed to have worked for had no record of her. While Marina and Leo Krim had seen her as part of their family, Yoselyn was quietly battling her own demons. Resentment appeared to have festered over time. Authorities discovered that Yoselyn had felt increasingly burdened by additional housework and what she perceived as a lack of recognition for her efforts. The financial strain of maintaining her son's tuition, combined with her growing dissatisfaction at work, seemed to push her toward a breaking point. Evidence collected from Yoselyn's journals hinted at her deteriorating mental state. Handwritten entries reflected her feelings of inadequacy and frustration. "I'm trying, but it's never enough," one passage read. The weight of her circumstances had taken a toll, and yet, to the Krim family, she had kept up appearances. Perhaps the most damning piece of evidence was Yoselyn's own confession after the attack. In the hospital, as detectives questioned her, she mumbled fragments about feeling trapped and desperate. She admitted to the crime but failed to articulate why she had done it, leaving investigators piecing together the motive from her troubled history. Forensic evidence further backed the case. Blood analysis confirmed the timeline, and Yoselyn's fingerprints were found on the knife. Her actions were premeditated, yet deeply rooted in personal turmoil. The tragedy raised haunting questions. How did a trusted caregiver turn into the cause of such unimaginable loss? And could anyone have seen this coming? The Krims had trusted Yoselyn with their most precious treasures, never suspecting the storm quietly brewing in her life. Now, the answers they sought seemed as elusive as the peace they had lost forever. After the horrifying events in the Krim household, Yoselyn Ortega was arrested while recovering from the wounds she had inflicted upon herself. Her initial hospitalization delayed the legal process, but as soon as she was deemed stable, she was transferred to police custody. The legal battle that followed would leave both the courtroom and the public grappling with the enormity of the crime. Yoselyn entered her plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Her defense argued that she had been suffering from severe mental illness at the time of the murders. They presented accounts of her struggles, pointing to her financial stress, emotional breakdowns, and deteriorating mental state as evidence. Her legal team called upon psychiatric experts who testified that Yoselyn was experiencing a psychotic episode, unable to distinguish between right and wrong. However, the prosecution painted a very different picture. They argued that the killings were calculated, deliberate acts. They pointed to the brutality of the crime and the choice of weapon, emphasizing that Yoselyn had multiple chances to stop but continued to carry out the horrific act. The prosecutor described the crime scene in vivid detail, calling it an unthinkable betrayal of trust. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was filled with grief-stricken family members, friends, and concerned citizens. Marina and Kevin Krim attended every session, visibly devastated but determined to see justice served for their children. Witnesses, including neighbors and former acquaintances, testified about Yoselyn's behavior before the tragedy, adding layers of complexity to the case. Psychiatric evaluations became central to the proceedings. While experts on both sides offered conflicting opinions, the jury ultimately found Yoselyn competent at the time of the murders. The final verdict: guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. During sentencing, the judge delivered a powerful and emotional statement. "This case is a tragedy beyond words," he said. 2 innocent lives were taken in a manner that defies human understanding. Trust was broken in the most devastating way. Yoselyn was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, ensuring she would spend the rest of her life behind bars. The trial's conclusion brought some measure of closure, but it could not erase the pain etched into the lives of everyone connected to Lucia and Leo Krim. For their parents, the sentence served as a reminder that justice had been sought, even if healing seemed far away. In the aftermath of their heartbreaking loss, Marina and Kevin Krim displayed an extraordinary resilience that touched everyone who followed their story. Through their unimaginable grief, they found ways to honor the memory of Lucia and Leo, channeling their pain into a mission that would inspire countless others. Following a deeply emotional memorial service, the Krim family released a heartfelt statement. Marina spoke of her children's joyful spirits, describing them as bright lights who brought love and laughter into every moment. Kevin added, "We will carry their love in our hearts forever, and through that love, we find the strength to move forward." Determined to create a legacy for their children, the Krims established the Lulu and Leo Fund. The fund supports creativity and resilience in children, reflecting the passions and personalities of Lucia and Leo. Through art programs, education initiatives, and community outreach, the Krims transformed their loss into a powerful force for good. As we reflect on this heartbreaking story, let us remember the young lives lost and the enduring love of a family determined to make a difference. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this tragic case. Please share your comments below, honor the memories of Lulu and Leo, and don't forget to share this video to keep their story alive.